Chapter 8 of Tractate Arachin covers the laws of consecrating land outside of the Jubilee year. The first Mishnah says, in the era where the Jubilee year does not exist, so basically since the destruction of the Second Temple during the time of exile, if somebody consecrates his field, the temple treasurer would auction the field with the owner having the first bid, as only he needs to pay an extra fifth to redeem it. It quotes an incident where this occurred, and somebody repurchased his own field for an Isser coin, or according to some, for an egg, as redemption can be with property according to them, so he basically just kept his field and lost an Isser coin. The Gemara says, the man doesn't just have the option of submitting the first bid, he's actually coerced to do so. The reason we gave was because his charge will be for an additional fifth, but there's also the reasons that it's his field and he wants it, and also as it's a mitzvah for him to redeem it. The dispute as to if redemption can be done with an egg is, as it's agreed something worth money is treated like money, it's just the possible issue with an egg is that its fifth is less than the minimum value of a pruta. And the last points are sourced. New Mishnah. When the temple auctions property, people make bids, and if somebody makes a higher bid and then retracts it, it goes to the lower bid beneath them, and the higher bidder needs to pay the difference. So if somebody bids 40 and somebody else bids 50 and the higher bid retracts, it would go to the lower bidder, and the retractor is charged 10 coins. If the one who said 40 retracted his bid, it would go down to the next person and he'd pay the remainder, all the way down the line. If one man bids for 20 salaim and the original owner bids for 20 salaim, the original owner gets it because he needs to add a fifth. If the original owner had bid 20 and somebody else had bid 21, the owner needs to pay 26 coins. If the other man offered 22, the owner gives 27. If the other man had offered 23, the owner gives 28. If the other man had offered 24, the owner gives 29. If the other man offered 25, the owner gives 30, meaning he doesn't add a fifth of the increase in price. If one man bid 26 coins and the owner gives 31 coins, he gets the property, and if he doesn't bid this amount, the bidder gets it instead. The Gemara says, if by the bid retractions, if there was a man who bid 30 and somebody bid 40 and somebody else bid 50, and the man who bid 40 retracted his first, and then the highest 50 bidder retracted his, the difference is split, meaning the one who bid 50 repays 15 coins, and the other man repays only 5 coins. It argues this principle from a few cases, particularly it's explained this applies if they retracted their bids at the same moment. If the higher bidder retracted his first, he'd pay 10, and the next man would pay 10. This is sourced along with some variation. The reason why if the original owner and another man bid the same amount, the original owner has precedence by his extra fifth, is as this is an actual increase in profit, unlike by something like Ma'aser Sheni, where the original owner doesn't get priority, as the extra fifth there isn't about the extra profit, it's just about redeeming it in the best manner. When we said one person offers 25, and the original owner offered 20, he must increase it to 30. This is explained that this is where he originally bid 20 sla'im and a pruta, which was just unmentioned as it's imprecise, which is why his is greater. Additionally, we said normally the original owner doesn't add a fifth due to the increase in price from the highest bidder. However, if the consecrated object was appraised by 3 men to be at the highest bidder's offered rate, the original owner would need to increase by a fifth, which is then sourced. Alternatively, they disagree with this posed scenario, and it's just a stringency. By the last point, if somebody makes a bid for 26 coins, the original owner has the option of redeeming it for 31 salaim and a dinner. This extra dinner is necessary, as the case was that originally the owner bid 21 salaim, so he has to pay a fifth and a dinner, and then 5 more to be above the high bid of 26. If he didn't do this, the high bid of 26 would get the property, as mentioned. New Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says, somebody can declare cherem, a vow to not benefit, from some of his sheep or some of his cattle or some of his slaves or parts of his ancestral fields, but if they were all declared cherem, that's not valid. It said, if a person isn't allowed to designate everything he owns to the temple, like we just mentioned, for sure he wouldn't be allowed to squander his properties on meaningless things. The Gemara sources the fact that a person can't declare such a vow on all of his property based on the implication of the verse. It also mentions other instances, such as that if somebody doesn't have the legal ability to sell something at all times, he is not allowed to declare such a thing to be cherem. So, for instance, somebody's daughter, he has no authority over her when she's an adult, so she can't be declared cherem. On this topic of not squandering one's property, it mentions the importance of charity. However, while it's said to be good to give a massive amount to charity, usually 10% of one's income, giving over a fifth is excessive and shouldn't be done. New Mishnah. If somebody declared his son or daughter to be cherem, or he did this to his Hebrew slave or to his purchased field, they cannot become cherem, as he doesn't own them. Regarding Kohanic cherem, essentially vowing to give property to Kohanim, Rabbi Yehuda says such a vow cannot be taken by Kohanim. Rabbi Shimon says Kohanim cannot do this, as it would just go back to them, but Levium can do this. Rebbe agrees with Rabbi Yehuda by land, and he agrees with Rabbi Shimon by movable property. The Gemara sources these principles, and it clarifies that Rabbi Shimon actually agrees with Rabbi Yehuda in regards to land, as they both hold Levium cannot make land cherem. If somebody declared movable objects to be cherem, he's allowed to give them to whichever Kohanim he wants. That's briefly sourced. Anyways, the field that's given to Kohanim by the Jubilee year is given to the Mishmar watch of Kohanim serving at that particular time. If the Jubilee year starts on a Shabbos, where there's 2 groups, it goes to the watch group at the beginning of the day. That's sourced also, and it's discussed further. The reason cherem movable objects are not given to the Mishmar, and can be given to any Kohen, is as this follows the opinion that movable objects and land are just not comparable. New Mishnah, Kohanic cherems cannot be redeemed. They're just given, like Truma is. There's a dispute if unspecified cherems are given to temple upkeep or to the Kohanim, which is based on some verses. A person can make his offerings of any type as cherem. If they were vowed offerings, he gives their worth. If it was a donated offering, the amount of its benefit is given. Meaning, if somebody said, this ox shall be an ola offering, it's evaluated by how much a person would give to offer that ox as an ola that he wasn't obligated to bring. By a bachar, a firstborn animal, whether it's blemished or unblemished, it can have cherem apply, and it could be redeemed by evaluating how much a person would give for the bachar to give it instead to a specific Kohen of his choosing. The Gemara quotes another source which says Kohanic cherems aren't redeemed, they're just given to Kohanim. Also, so long as the owner has them, they're consecrated, and once the Kohen receives them, they're unconsecrated. It additionally disputes between the opinions as to what the status of an unspecified cherem is. It argues as to who we hold like in practice, as some just reverse the opinion. So it's generally said that unspecified cherems go to temple upkeep, but then the issue is as to who exactly hold like this, and others still disagree and say it goes to Kohanim. A case is quoted where it says the laws of cherem applies only when the Jubilee year does, and yet these opinions say the man would need to redeem his property or possibly give them to Kohanim, which shouldn't apply as the Jubilee year doesn't apply here, so it's explained that it was referring to movable property, not land, where cherem by those applies even where the Jubilee year does not exist. Land outside of Israel has the same status as movable properties inside of Israel, which is relevant to why the case applied. New Mishnah. Another source regarding the Bechor tithe. One verse says you shall consecrate a Bechor. Another verse says you cannot consecrate a Bechor. So it's explained that it can have a consecration of value. So a gift can be given to a Kohen, but it cannot be consecrated to be offered on the altar. The Gemara says there was a different opinion mentioned in the prior Mishnah who uses alternative sources. They use this to prove simply that a Bechor must be consecrated verbally. The Mishnah's opinion says this isn't necessary as the animal consecrates itself from the womb by just being born as a firstborn. And that's the end of chapter 8.